Can you keep pace with the evolving ESG landscape? The 2024 certificate in ESG investing has been updated with the latest research and insights to help you become the in-house expert at your organization. Register today at cfainstitute.org/ESG certificate. That's cfainstitute.org/ESG certificate.
Welcome to Compound Insights, a podcast by CFA Society New York. I'm your host, Rob Rowan. Now, the CFA Institute puts out some excellent written research on the industry. To help you think about it and prioritize it, today we have the person responsible for it on the podcast. Paul Andrews oversees the strategic direction of the research, advocacy, and standard functions at CFA Institute. Prior to joining CFAI, Paul was Secretary General of IOSCO, and he worked at FINRA. Prior to joining FINRA, he spent 8 years at the US SEC, where he was, and before that, he was in legal practice. He is a graduate of the Catholic University School of Law and Villanova. So thank you for being here, Paul.
It's a real pleasure, Rob, and thanks for having me. I've been looking forward to this.
Yeah, I'm real interested to hear because once again I pointed out there's a lot of great things come out of CFA Institute's website all the time. But could you put a spotlight on things that you think are most important to members now?
I'd be happy to, and I'd like to highlight three pieces that we did fairly recently because I do think that they have great relevance to members and honestly society at large. The first is a paper that we published as part of our launch of the Research and Policy Center, which is our new initiative at CFA Institute. And in that report, we wrote something called the Future State of the Investment Industry, and highlighted a number of what we see are the mega trends and the big scenarios that are going to be driving markets and the industry for the next 5 or so years. And so many of those themes are at the heart of what members do in terms of creating portfolios for clients, issues around sustainability, how digital transformation is transforming our industry, and certainly about what deglobalization is looking like. And so all of that, I think, is a very, very important piece just to set the stage more than anything. So that's the first piece I would very much want to highlight. The second one is around some work we did at the end of November on crypto assets. And a very, very difficult subject in many respects, depending on where you fall on the spectrum. Some people think crypto is great. Other people think crypto is very, very challenging and really not worth the paper it's written on. But we didn't take a view on that. What we said is, if you're investing in these assets and you like some approaches to how to value them, that's where we would like to be helpful. So we put out a paper on how to value these assets without saying they're good, bad, or indifferent. And at the same time, we also put out a tool that is available to members that is behind our member gate because it's an exclusive benefit for the membership about how to actually put this tool in practice when you're looking at and valuing these types of assets in response to client demands and things of that nature.
Yeah, I would imagine this is very helpful for a lot of people right now, particularly if you're in a client-facing role, because of the success of the ETFs that have been all over the news for the last couple of weeks. And the big issue with it is ain't got no time series.
That's right. That's exactly right. And part of the mission that we have, and in our view, is not only do we want to put out some good research, but we want it to be useful and practical for the membership. And that's why we put out this tool for the crypto asset valuation. And then let me just highlight the third piece, if I could, which was one we just put out a few weeks ago around finfluencers. How finfluencers are impacting the way the younger generation in particular is receiving their information about investing, and how this cadre of finfluencers is really shaping the investment world. And we put out some recommendations, not only for the finfluencers themselves, but for firms that employ or use finfluencers, and then also for investors as well. Some of the pitfalls to look out for, but some of the great benefits that finfluencers bring to the marketplace, especially for a generation that's how they receive their information through social media.
Yeah, I think that's also very timely now, also because of the attention that's being paid to non-banking financial institutions.
That's
Is
no, you're exactly right, and the
exceptionally important
impact.
to focus on now. Yeah, it's really interesting.
And we were very lucky with that report because we were engaging with a finfluencer who worked with us and really helped us with some terrific insights.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, well, so could we switch a little bit to, that definitely whets the appetite a bit. And sorry, before we go on, one other quick question I had for you. That first publication you mentioned, that's part of a series, is it not?
It's a different series, I guess I should say. What we did is we took a macro look in the first paper, whereas the work we did before was a series of papers about the future of the professional, the future of the investment firm, et cetera. This was a step back and looked at the whole ecosystem of the investment industry.
Okay, that sounds great. Now, could you tell us a little bit about what you have in the pipeline? What's next?
Yeah, yeah, we really have quite a bit going, as you might imagine. And
Yeah.
what we've had to do, which makes sense, I think, was sort of narrow down our topic areas. And the reason I wanted to mention the future state paper a moment ago is because we use that to drive our research agenda for this fiscal year. And as I mentioned, we highlighted four scenarios that we think are going to drive the markets, and we picked three of those to focus on for this year. So the first is around sustainability. That'll come as no great surprise. Second is around digital transformation. Again, no great surprises. And then there's the third area we're calling the end of cheap money, which is really about capital formation in a world of higher interest rates. And at least in parts of the world, interest rates are starting to come down, but they're still higher than they've been for the last 2 decades. And what are the implications of that for the industry? And so we're planning to address a number of things there on with a series of work around private markets, looking at governance, looking at valuation, and then we're also going to be doing some work around tokenization because that's becoming more and more front and center in many portfolios these days is how assets are tokenized, the mechanics of how it works, and then what the policy implications of that are, it could be.
Yeah, the policy is the big one of the big wild cards in that, isn't it? It's not ready yet.
It's
So,
yeah, exactly right. The policy is catching up to the industry advances in terms of the technology and just the business case by and large. So policy needs to catch up.
yeah, that sounds fascinating. I mean, and once again, because I think anyone who's client facing is getting a lot of those types of questions. So that's great. And it's also, I mean, I think it's also going to be interesting to see how higher rates go through the private markets because it will take a while.
That's right.
Right. There's
That's
so many
exactly
fixed
right.
rate assets out there that, they're not going to reset until they refinance. So
Yeah.
it's gonna take a while.
Another area that may be of interest to your listenership is the digital transformation work we're doing, which of course today is all about artificial intelligence and Gen AI, et cetera, large language models, et cetera. And we're going to be doing a series of short papers about how this technology is actually being implemented in the industry and how it's transforming the workflow of the investment professional today.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
And I thought your members might be interested in that because it's new. Everybody's sort of feeling their way with it, and we said, look, we think we can be of help to CFA members and others in the industry about what's actually happening and what are some of the tools people are using out there, and what does it really mean for their daily workflow.
Yeah, that would be really valuable because I do think there's sort of an emotional and a practical thing going on here in the minds of a lot of members. The emotional one is, oh my goodness, this thing's going to take me out of a job. And the practical is, well, every technological advance that came before this was wildly over exaggerated at this stage. So remember we used to think email was going to fix everything? Like that did not happen.
And the other funny
So,
part about it is when you talk to quant firms in particular, they tell us, I mean, we've been using this type of technology for decades. And yes, is it different today? Yes, I think it is different. It's been democratized in so many ways, and maybe that's one difference, but it's not entirely new for our industry.
right. but the thing that does happen with democratization is the number of applications expands.
That's
So
right.
as people get their hands on it and go, oh, I could use this for this,
Yeah.
so yeah,
So
it's
yeah,
interesting. To me, it's a fascinating way that human beings adapt to things. Well, let's talk to about another human creation, which is your bread and butter, is advocacy. So,
right,
what are you
right.
working on now?
Well, on that front, we've been spending a fair amount of time on some issues revolving around the sustainability debate. And there was a call from my old organization, I guess about a year or so ago, about trying to harmonize some definitions around what does responsible investing really mean. And we throw around terms like screening or stewardship or ESG integration, but no two organizations really mean the same thing when they use those terms. So we came together with the UNPRI as well as the Global Sustainability Investment Alliance to define five key common terms that the three organizations now stand behind and are advocating for use across the entire industry when it comes to issues dealing with sustainability or climate investing, et cetera. And I've been really pleased that we've gotten some traction on this, where the FCA in the UK, the Financial Conduct Authority, is has considered and is using these definitions, and the Australian Retirement Trust in Sydney has also agreed to use these definitions in its upcoming sustainability report.
Okay.
So it's a
Yeah,
start. It's a
yeah,
start.
that's a pretty good start. Yeah, that's the because that affects particularly a lot of pensions.
That's
So
exactly. That's exactly right. And of course, for the listeners, your listeners in the US, we've been spending a fair amount of time responding to and actually having some success as well with some of the SEC proposals related to private fund advisors and the whole private funds, I would say, industry, and how the GIPS standards in particular are really a useful tool to get firms fairly compliant with the SEC marketing rule, which is of course part and parcel of the private funds sector. And so we've been holding a number of webinars and seminars, and the SEC has made it pretty clear that if you comply with GIPS, the GIPS standards, you're pretty close to being in compliance with the SEC marketing rule.
great. Are those GIP standards webinars available on CFA Institute's website?
I don't know, Rob. I'll have to check for you. I don't know
Okay.
if the
Either way,
webinars
I'll
are.
yeah, I'll check and see, and I'll put it into the show notes if they're there. It just occurred to me that I didn't notice them, and I consider myself a pretty good surfer of CFA Institute's website, but you never know.
Yeah, and we're also trying to look at what's happening as well in the EU, particularly as it relates to sort of listings and disclosures around sustainability. As I'm sure your listeners know, Europe has very strict disclosure rules with respect to sustainability issues, and what are the corporate governance matters around that, how listing rules are impacted, and we're doing a little bit of advocacy in that area as well.
That is also interesting, because the one of the things that has affected our society and lots of other societies is the expansion of some of the EU's rules around disclosures for people's identities when they sort of backdoored into our neighborhoods by saying that the spouse of any European would also be covered by that.
Interesting.
And
Interesting.
as a person who's married to an Italian, I was
Yeah.
particularly noted.
I should probably also mention some advocacy work. And maybe it's not advocacy per se, but it's a little bit around the whole idea of net zero. And I know that for some, that's a bit of a politically charged topic. But again, just like with crypto, we're not going to take a view, you should do net zero investing, you should not do net zero investing. But what we will do is probably put out some policy positions around, if you do it, here are some things that you should keep in mind, so that it helps with some guidance from CFA Institute for those that choose to take that path without passing judgment one way or the other.
Yeah, that's also really helpful because I think a lot of members of CFA New York and other societies try to duck the political discussions with this, but do need to deliver something to their clients that they can actually use.
That's right. That's right. And we also thought to keep it high level, it could be useful for the US, but it also could be useful for the membership around the world.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Excellent. Well, thank you, Paul. That's all very helpful. To the members who are listening to this podcast, I hope this helps you to prioritize some of what is a venerably large amount of information that comes from CFA Institute. But I hope this helps you to kind of parse it and prioritize it. And once again, you'll be able to find all the things we talked about here in the show notes once we publish this podcast. So, Paul, thank you again for being on.
Thank you, Rob. It was a real pleasure to be with you today.
And thank you to everyone who dialed into this podcast. Next time, we will be speaking with the CIO of Simplify, one of those non-bank financial institutions. So tune in and hear what that person has to say about the direction of his firm, but also about some of the difficulty and calling that he has around helping retail investors to handle their investments. So until next time, I'm Rob Rowan, and this has been Compound Insights.